My name is Amanda. I am currently
Hi, Amanda.
the reason I'm standing here is I'm the chair of the governance committee and the facilitator for this meeting. My other things that I do here are I am on the merch committee. I'm doing product requests. My other thing that I have is I'm the former general manager at the Bushwick Food Co-op, so I know a lot about co-ops in the city and how they work and things like that. So that's my role here. We're going to very, very quickly introduce ourselves, say your name, and if you have a role in the co-op, and let's try to do this as quickly as possible. Starting from over here.
Can I quickly interrupt? Rather than having the note taker have to try and get everyone's name, I'm going to send around a sheet and you put your name on it, and then we'll be able to get everyone who's in attendance afterwards. So I will get a pen and.
Whenever you let me know when I can do it.
Your seats over there.
Can I start? Can I start, Mitchell?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Cecile, and I'm a board member over here. And that's it.
I'm Matthew Talmadge. I'm a board member since November. And I want to thank everyone for coming here and participating and getting informed and being informed and listening and making a decision about the future of this co-op. Thank you.
Let's go back here.
Sorry, just
name and what you do in the co-op.
Oh, I am Ruth, and I sometimes work on the floor and sometimes as a cashier. Okay. Hi, Ruth.
I'm Mary, shift leader, do some membership stuff. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Alicia. I just joined last month, and I'd like to continue to come.
Yeah. Hi, Gretchen, member since 2012, and interested in hearing all these proposals. Thank you for all your work.
I'm Andrew. Done a lot of things.
I'm Brett, the Virginia member.
I'm Lucy. I do cashiering. I'm Sarah. I'm co-chair of the merchandise committee. Chris.
Back to me. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Chris, another board member.
Sonia, usually I'm a shift leader. Christina, I'm on the merch committee.
And Colin, I work on the floor.
Taylor, I'm on merch. I'm Teresa, I'm on merch.
Ahmed, coordinator.
Nada, I work in the merch.
PK, I'm on marketing.
Regina, I work as cashier.
Sean, work cashier for. Really like this idea. Wanted to come and support the idea of staying open. Really like to see the co-op not closed.
Chris, I work floor and cashier. Steve, I do bill pay.
Jen, merchandising committee.
And Raina, store coordinator.
Ellie, newsletter committee.
Awesome. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. The grand design of the meeting today is, do we close the co-op for good? Do we stay open and move to a new location? There's a bunch of other little minutia kind of things that we can talk about in either proposal. But we just want to get an overall big picture, discuss all of our options. Because we don't have enough members for a quorum here, what comes out of this is going to be a proposal that we're going to send to the membership for the membership to vote on. We have the agenda. Let's see how we're going to go through the co-op, the history, sort of our financial point up to now. After that, we're going to talk about the moving to the new location, and then we're going to talk about the closing of the co-op, and then we're going to have a question and answer for both of those kinds of things. Do we actually have like I put these in the agenda. I did not assign them to anyone of who is doing the mission and guiding principles and things like that. I'm happy to do so. But
I can also, you want to go ahead and do it.
Okay. So just to start out, the sort of mission and guiding principles of the co-op. This has been voted on by members in the past. It's up on our website. But just to sort of like keep in mind all their principles while we are having this discussion. Says, we value the spirit of cooperation and a democratic process in which each individual has a voice and each member owner works to support the co-op. We strive to offer a range of local, affordable, organic, and sustainable food. As neighbors, we strive to reflect the community in which we live and we actively work to ensure that the co-op is accessible to all. And we seek to develop the co-op as an ethical entity using transparent and socially responsible buying and selling practices. Who is able to do a review of the lease termination and past relocation efforts?
What's that?
Review of lease termination and past relocation efforts.
I have updated this.
I could do that.
Yeah, can we talk about the lease termination?
Sure, I have 5 minutes budgeted for
Right,
this
yeah,
particular
so
topic.
very quickly. We had a lease for 5 years. We had the 5 years point we could renew. If the landlord agreed with renewal terms, and they forced us to put a 90-day eviction clause in the 5-year renewal, or they wouldn't sign it. So that's where that put us in jeopardy right then. So we've been, I think, for 2 years in this current lease, and they claimed they weren't going to sell the building, but then they obviously were moving to sell the building, and that made it a dilemma for us. So they tried to evict us about 1.5 years ago, and then that was they didn't succeed because they couldn't figure it out for whatever reason, and so we were in court 3 times and we prevailed each time, and now they have figured out how to evict us, and so we must leave by May 1st. We have great pro bono lawyers, DLA Piper, which is a really great firm. Great for hanging in there with us.
I can give the overview of the relocation.
Awesome.
At the time that we first received the lease termination 1.5 years ago, a small group, we got together and looked at what we needed to do and broke up into smaller groups, some dealing with getting a pro bono lawyer and dealing with the lease, and then others like myself and Cecile headed up to looking for a place. And at that time, 1.5 years ago, we looked at probably 24 places, put a bid on one place at like Atlantic and Bedford, around there, and we lost out to that from a higher bidder. Then there was one other place we were looking at Nostrand and Pacific, and ultimately after a couple months of negotiation, we couldn't get them down to what was originally about $5,000. At that point, we determined that it was impossible to do where our finances were. Most of the rents that we were looking at for a place of comparable size were around $5,000, which finance said we couldn't do it all. So we decided to focus more on trying to get our finances set better. And that's what we focused on for the last year. We also, the landlord was no longer taking us to court and was not communicating with us, so we thought they might back off, and we didn't continue looking for physical spaces until just the last couple of weeks when they again came up with a lease termination.
Can I add one thing? At the time, if I recall well, the finance recommendation about the rent we could afford was $2,500.
Yes.
So just to give you an idea about finance aspect of everything.
We're going to take a short break, and if you don't want to get settled, there's some space over here. I think we might be able to share. You're only welcome to come in to either side.
Maybe we want to also mention that if you don't sign in, if you haven't already signed in, make sure you sign in when you leave.
You sign in forward going around.
Or sign out.
Yeah, there's a clipboard going around.
If we did get to 50 people, which seems like amazing, if we did, we would be able to take a vote, right?
We don't need 50 people for quorum.
Somewhere around there. 50, 55, 53. Yeah.
Renee did the cleanups. Anyways, talk about that later.
We can talk about that later. So the voting of the If we have a quorum of members here, which is 10% of our membership, which is somewhere around 50-ish, we can take votes as members. We can make a decision here now today. We can send it to the membership as an online vote. For whatever reason we don't make quorum, then the board has authorized the online vote, and it will end next week. So that's sort of like where we are in our decision-making process here. Next on the agenda is a review of finances, like monthly sales or loan obligations. Anyone?
I have the financial data up right now. Just sort of big picture summary is, as Matthew was saying, much of our focus in conversations on the board, on the finance committee, on merchandising and membership over the past 6 months or so have been, how can we increase our sales? How can we boost our revenue so that financially we're in a position to move? What has happened in the past 6 months is sales are down about 25%. We are currently losing about $5,000 a month. So we were sort of shifting gears, and the conversations in the board meetings were sort of coming to the point of, okay, what do we do about that? We need to really change course so that we can stay open in our current location. And then we got the notice that the lease was being terminated. Clearly, we can't improve our finances if we don't have a source of revenue. So that's sort of the conundrum that we're in right now. I'll give you some hard numbers. If I can switch to the right tab. It'll just be easier to look at on paper. If we look at the first half of 2017, our average monthly sales were about $61,000 a month. That's about what we need in order to break even. The second half of 2017, sales were averaged about $45,000 a month. And in the first couple months of 2018, we're on par with the average for the second half of 2017. There has been a little bit of an increase in the past couple of weeks, not enough to really change the big picture. That's sort of the rough and dirty financial summary. Are there, yeah?
So do you have an estimation of our the monthly expenses that we have, as well as the loan obligations that we still have?
Monthly expenses are roughly $10,000 a month. The biggest expense being payroll. That does not include inventory spending. Sort of keep that in a separate bucket.
That doesn't include
Does
lease?
not.
What about lease?
That does include our rent.
It's all the fixed expenses, basically.
Those are all the fixed expenses. If we look at inventory spending, it really goes down with our revenue. The other thing is we have roughly sort of $45,000 in loans, outstanding loans. We have been solvent, have been making payments on those, and have been keeping up with them, so nothing is overdue at this point. The other big number to look at is money in the bank right now. The latest update, and I'm sorry to keep giving very rough figures, but the latest update from Bianca, our finance chair, was today. Cash in the bank was around $20,000. So there's not currently enough money in the bank to pay all of the loans. There's also not enough revenue right now to match our expenses.
Just to make it clear, loans are money that were loaned to to us. It has nothing to do with member investment. Member investment is a separate issue.
Yeah, Steve.
Plus, there's the roughly 20-something thousand that we supposedly still owe Collimore's, our current landlord. It's
Yeah,
not
so
that.
one sort of complicating factor that we're trying to work out with our lawyers is during that period of time after the landlord first tried to evict us and the second time, they did not accept our rent checks for a number of months. So they returned them, they didn't cash them.
Does
And
this
so
number include that money that's
the
still
money
there?
in the bank is essentially that money.
There's a hand over here.
Yeah, is there any information, like, do we have any data about whether the decrease in spending is like a decrease in the people who are coming or how much people are spending? We have information.
Yeah,
on that?
the average, it's not a decrease in what we call the basket. So the average amount that people are spending when they come to shop has remained stable for almost as long as we've been open. What's decreasing is the number of people who are shopping.
It's about a $40 basket.
Yeah, between 30 and 40.
What rate are we paying our loans at? And at that rate, at what point should we?
The loans, there's a few different baskets of loans and they're paid at different rates. Most of the loans are to members. So there are people in this room who've loaned money to the co-op. And a lot of those loans are repaying just the principal right now. Or, sorry, not just the interest. The one loan that's not a member loan is a loan from the Park Slope Food Co-op, which we make payments both principal and
The other thing to know about the loans is the Park Slope loan is a secured loan. Their loan is secured based on the fixtures and inventory that we have, versus our member loans are unsecured loans, which means if we do decide to close, Park Slope gets paid first based on what we have, and then if there's anything left after that, it's going to go to our members.
I get paid first of the loaner, not necessarily the first person that get paid.
Of the loans that get paid.
Yeah.
The just to clarify a little bit more, the member loans are payment of the principal due at maturity, and they'll all mature between 2019 and 2020.
Okay. So that's sort of baseline information. We're gonna turn it over to Sarah
And Lindsay?
and Lindsay and whoever else may have.
Okay.
This is gonna be about a 20-minute presentation of the option to move the co-op.
All right. I just want to add one more thing about finance.
Okay, one more finance.
One more finances. I think there is still 2 fiscal year to be booked, right? We're behind for 2 fiscal year
Yes.
in terms of tax.
So there were 2 tax years, I think it's 2014 and 2015,
Right, Steve?
that
Right?
where taxes were not filed. The finance committee is working on that, and they have a accountant that is contracted to work on that. They are catching up. They've been playing catch up for the past year or so, getting those back taxes filed. We don't know what sort of penalty they may be. We don't anticipate having to pay taxes because we haven't turned a profit.
Yeah.
So that's just sort of one unknown variable in the matter. The most recent tax years are filed. It's those back years.
Oh, they have been.
Well, that was my understanding, but I can double check that.
2016?
Well, clearly there's a question.
Okay, we ready to roll?
Yeah.
Great. Okay,
In about
so
20 minutes.
yeah, sure. Let's see what we're right now. All right. I made a bunch of copies, but clearly not enough. I have a couple left that if people could kind of pass along and share. So we have one between 2.
Amanda, we're not worried
That
about the
would be
equity
really great.
No.
issue at this point.
The issues that Renee raised with equity, we're going to get to next. We don't, okay, so the discussion here is talking about the broad pictures of moving or closing.
Okay.
The sort of minutia kinds of things of
Yep.
of what happens in each scenario. We're going to be talking about next week.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a couple more copies here.
Yeah,
But if people could
she would know whether or not.
share, that would be really great. And I think these might be mine. Oh no, I have one more.
If you want
And then I have the original. Okay, I'll pass a copy over here. Does anyone need a copy over here, or are you all sharing? Is there anyone who doesn't have their eyes on a copy of our proposal?
I would like it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is I'm going to talk a little bit about the proposal and our proposed Indiegogo campaign, and then Lindsay's going to talk more about the nuts and bolts of the space itself, what it looks like, how much it's going to cost us, and the kind of stuff we're going to need. So if we could start with the thing that says proposal for 1083 Fulton Street. Let's hope that I have it. If I give mine away. I gave mine away. Here he does. Okay, so one difference between now and about a year and a half ago, when Matthew and Cecile were looking at spaces, is that the commercial real estate market was very tough then, and it's very soft now, with having looked at about 15 spaces. There was nothing that was $5,000. Everything was below $5,000 that was in this area. And there were some things for less, but they were much further out. So we set our maximum at about 4,000, and we found this space on the corner of Fulton and Classen, so about 2 blocks away from here. So I'm just going to kind of walk through this. Okay, so when it was clear that our only financially viable option was to close, a few of us went, oh my God! And we decided to try doing something else just in case. So Lindsay and I went on a mad 3-day commercial real estate search, and we came up with a couple of options of which we decided this one is the best. Okay, so the space is about 2,000 square feet, which is a bit larger than our store space now. It's laid out fairly similarly, although it has kind of a little bit of a laid out kind of set off space, like an alcove area, would you call it that?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit narrow, more narrow than our space now, but it's just as the same width in the front, and then it's probably a third longer than our current
Right.
So it has room for stuff.
Right.
For clarification, when you say our space, are you talking about just the
Just
shopping
the store.
area?
Yes, I'm sorry. So look, when we say our space, we're not talking about this, and we're not talking about storage. We're just talking about the shopping floor. However, what 1083 has that this space doesn't have is a basement that has the same footprint as the store. In other words, 2,000 square feet with a new boiler, with enough room, if we wanted to stick a walk-in. It's an unusually high basement, like most basements between 6.5 and 7 feet high. And if I, even at my height, if I stood on my tiptoes, I could touch the roof. I would say that one is probably an 8-foot ceiling.
Yeah.
So it's tall enough for anything we want to do with it. It's currently unoccupied. And we have lots of options as to where we want to put the walk-in cooler, where we want to put compressors, and Lindsay will talk a little bit more, maybe Gunnar can jump in about this, about where we could actually put things and what it would look like and how much it would cost us. The major expenses are installing new flooring on the shopping floor. The floor is just not in great shape. We need to put in overhead lighting because there is no overhead lighting. We need to obviously install the produce cooler, the fridges, the compressors that go along with that. Depending on how much member labor we can use, and Lindsay's going to talk about this more in detail, if we have plumbers and electricians in our membership, that's really the bulk of the cost apart from the floor. The floor is about $1,500. If anyone's ever had construction done, you will know that the main cost is the work. If we have people who have that expertise and are licensed and bonded electricians and plumbers, it's going to save us a lot of money. There is another business looking at the space, but the real estate guy says the owner would much rather have us. The other business looking is like barbershop, hair salon, and there's a sense that like there's too much competition on Fulton Street already for that business. There's a concern that they would not make enough money. We would have to lay down 2 months security plus first month's rent. One thing that we might be able to do is negotiate some space unpaid to do our construction. That's not uncommon in the commercial real estate world. So we might be able to do the work and move stuff in before we have to start paying. But that's, up for negotiation.
That is very common.
Yeah, so that's also a plus because it gives us a bit more breathing room in terms of getting money. I don't talk about finances because the board talked about it in a very thorough way. And this move will not be cheap. We have to lay down minimum $15,000 if we include minimum construction costs and basically 3 months rent. So the question is, how do we pay for this given that we have $20,000 in the bank and like $65,000 worth of encumbrances of one kind or another? Sales are down. That is true. As chair of the merch committee, I track sales every week. But one thing that seems to be the case is that given the uncertainty, people have been shopping less and fewer people have been shopping. And this is just anecdotal. I think Lindsay as a coordinator can maybe talk more about this, but people are dispirited and feel kind of depressed when they come to the co-op and don't want to come, to be honest. People who come spend the same amount of money, but fewer people are coming in the door and fewer people are doing their shifts as well. So I think we can see sort of a one-to-one relationship, or maybe 75% to one relationship between member uncertainty, members showing up in the store to shop and or to work. Obviously, that's an unknown. We don't know why this is happening, but it seems like if we trace it from about May 2017 was the last time that our sales were at about the $15,000 a week level. So what happened was we had the dip of the summer, which always happens, and it just never came back up again. And that was when we were talking in earnest about the co-op having to fold, what are we going to do, where are we going to move? So it seems like, obviously, it's circumstantial, but it seems like there is a kind of relationship between those two things. So how are we going to raise the money? I will, so if you look at the thing that says help save our Green Hill Co-op, this is a draft for an Indiegogo campaign. It should actually say Indiegogo campaign on top, but I didn't put that in. So this is something that we drafted along with help from members of the board. And it's, it's kind of the tone of an Indiegogo campaign. It's sort of, cheery and please give us money. And as you can see, we have some very sweet perks. Some of these things we just have on hand. Some of these things we can get from, we can either ask members to buy for us, or I would imagine these are all neighborhood businesses. Some of them will donate, not least because they can write off on their taxes. Oh yes, sorry. What makes us think that an Indiegogo campaign would work, particularly since one thing that we're saying in it is, even if we can't make the money to move, we have to pay our debts, is because I looked on Indiegogo and there are several campaigns very much like ours of neighborhood businesses. There's a bookshop in Chicago, for example, that's in exactly the same situation we are. They have a shitload of debt, their sales are down a little bit, and they need to expand, and they need about $30,000. And they exceeded their goal. This is, again, and you will see on the back page of the proposal, isn't this a risky plan? Yes. Yes, we are taking a risk here. We absolutely are. There's no question that this is a risk. We have very little money in the bank. We'll be moving into a new space. We'll be depleting our resources, and we will be depending upon the kindness of strangers. But our choices are either to close and declare bankruptcy, or try to move into a new space, raise as much money as we can. And several members have already come forwards and said, yes, I'll organize separate fundraisers. And, so I think if there is the energy to do this, we can do it. And I think we can succeed.
We also have had a surge in trial members that have been living in trial member purgatory for quite a while. And so, it would provide us an opportunity to get their investment and to get them on board. And, we have the resources to build our membership. It's just been the instability of the last year with potentially moving or closing that's kind of hindered that growth.
How many members?
I'm not sure, but I can tell you
yeah, because it's not the same thing if you have 15 trial members that are waiting, or if you have 80 or 60.
I would say, yeah, we have 100 trial members that are probably waiting to join.
Okay, so do you want to talk
confirmation?
Hold on. Can we?
Yeah, membership.
All right, let's do our thing, and then we'll take questions and comments if that's okay. All right. So how about you talk about the work and how much it's going to cost and what the floor looks like? Let me step back.
Yeah. So the space is. It has a nice storefront. It's right on Fulton, so it has a lot of foot traffic. The size is adequate to have all of the assets that we already have in it. And it also provides a good deal of space for growth. And it has a hot water heater, so if we wanted to do prepared foods and that type of thing, all of the infrastructure is there for us to install that. The flooring is a little bit warped, and Kale's come up with a solution that if we run plywood in the opposite direction that it's currently laid down, we can put that down and it'll level out the floor, and then we would just finish that off, so we wouldn't have to worry about putting a laminate or tile or something like that down. So it's pretty affordable. It would be $2,000, and Gunnar, myself, and Kale are all equipped to install that flooring, and we'd obviously love to have other members participate in that, and we've already had quite a bit of interest from members that are here and also from Park Slope who would be down to get involved. Other costs would be for paint, and then all the members would paint and clean and prep the space. In the back, there's kind of a weird little room that is like a walk-in that looks like it was probably from the 70s. It's like a wood paneled walk-in. It's kind of awesome. But we would want to demo all of that. And in this back space, there's all this stuff covering up the walls, and we think that there's either windows or something behind there. Either way, we would want to demo the space and make it a meeting area and also an office space. And then in this area, there's kind of, you open the door in the bathroom, and then there's just this pit that's filled with a bunch of crap right now. Yeah. And so
it's about an 8-foot drop.
Yeah.
When you open the door.
Yeah. So we want to. Yeah. So we want to install
The level of the basement floor.
Yeah. So we want to either seal that door, or if we raise enough money, we could install a deck that we could put the trash out on, and or we put stairs down to put the trash down there. Obviously, we want to make it as easy as possible for members who are working. So, ideally, we would put the deck in or not have anything out there at all. The bathroom has room for us to put the slop sink that we currently have in it as well. There's adequate water lines, so we can put another sink in upstairs or downstairs. In comparison to a lot of the spaces that we saw, the basement stairs are safe, really manageable and unusually wide and nice to walk up and down. So that's pretty awesome. And the basement, like Sarah said, is obviously not as high as this, but it's not by any means a crawl space. It has plenty of room to fit our walk-in and all of our storage needs. And
then, it also has street access.
Yes.
So that at some point we could put a conveyor belt in so that we wouldn't have to carry things up and down.
Yeah. So that's pretty much where spaces. It has really great street access, so I think we could, our storefront's been looking a little sad lately, so we could really make this into a co-op 2.0 situation.
And nobody walks on this street, everybody walks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of opens us up to Crown Heights again, or a little bit more. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
One thing I wanted to add as well about the Indiegogo campaign that's in the how will we pay for all of this. If every single member of Park Slope Food Co-op gave us $2, we would exceed our goal.
Yeah, but they're not going to.
No, I'm not saying that they're going to. But what I'm saying is if we stood outside Park Slope Food Co-op and said, please give us $2 to help save our co-op, and every single person gave us $2, we would be able to afford to do this and start getting out of debt. So, and I also want to talk a little bit, Taylor had this really fantastic idea that I just want to share, which is that that we roll the campaign out in 2 layers. So one, we go into a soft launch, friends, family, other co-ops, both locally and nationally. Then when we've got some money to show for it, it's sort of like when you're playing guitar on the street and you seed your guitar case with a couple of dollars, right? People don't want to give money where there's no money. Once we've raised a little bit of money from those sources, then we take it live and everyone says, please give money, please save the Greene Hill people. So that seemed to be also a way for us to gauge how much response there is. If we don't get at least a third of the money in that soft launch, we'll have a sense of how it's going to go. And also we can get, unlike other crowdfunding sites, Indiegogo lets you keep what you get with a little bit of fee rather than an all or nothing. So it will cost us a little bit more on the back end, but we will be able to keep whatever we raise. So I think, is that it?
Yeah, I think that, we're looking to raise $20,000 to $30,000 to fund this, and if we close, opening another co-op is not going to be easy or maybe even possible because all of our assets are tied up in this co-op and our loans. So, we'd have to do the same thing over again. We'd have to take out the same amount of money, buy the same stuff, and then you also have to talk to all of our vendors who we just kind of flaked on and then try to build the same relationships that we already have. So I think it's kind of an all or nothing situation.
So yeah, we'll take questions and comments. Yeah.
Just how long would the campaign be? When do we need the money by? Like when can we have to decide?
It depends. Usually, Indiegogo, the maximum is 60 days. So we do somewhere between 45 and 60 days. One downside of, if the owner lets us do construction work without paying, in fact, we'll be okay because between closing the campaign and getting your cash is about 2 weeks. So we could have the money up front by the time we were actually opening, assuming we opened the Indiegogo campaign, let's say, first week in March. And it's almost ready to go. It just needs some pretty pictures.
Yeah. And also if we can put 1 month, if we can put some of the money, if we're committed to this and the little money that we do have in the bank, if we can put some portion of that forward to, lock the space down, then I really don't think we'd have a challenge raising the other 8,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to sort of follow on that question, when do we need to know in terms of if we're not going to do it, when do we have to have made decisions and started moving in the direction of the other stuff?
Or it could be an ASA.
I mean, maybe that might be a question for the other side.
Yeah, sure.
As a board member, we are moving on that path now.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking with the lawyer to figure out whether we just dissolve or the difference between dissolving the co-op and declaring bankruptcy. We would already start negotiations with people who loaned money to us to see if there is an amount that we can negotiate rather than the full payment. There'd be a number of different
is there a
tracks.
time? What you're saying is that you're figuring out the timeline for already? Do you have a sense
out the door May 1st?
It sounds like these negotiations are already happening. So,
Yeah.
at what point if we knew we are halfway to our goal, we're optimistic, could we reverse track? And at what point would it be too late to reverse track?
I think at any
Does that make
point
sense?
you can say, as with any legal procedure, you can say I'm dropping it.
Uh-huh.
You know, with a civil legal procedure, obviously a criminal one. But no, any civil, like if you're suing
Hopefully we're
someone
not there yet.
and you're 3/4 through,
Right.
you can say, actually, you know what, I don't want to
Right.
sue you anymore.
Right. As far as like our loans, if we were to say, you know, this is what we're looking at as far as the value of our assets being refrigerators, the walk-in, all that. And so this is how much money we have. This is how much we'll be able to pay you. And it's not everything. But if you wait, we have this funding campaign and you
Right.
might get all your money back. They
Right.
might be more amenable to waiting. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
those,
Right.
we need to be communicating
Yeah.
with
So we
everyone.
could kind of start on both tracks and
We
see
have
Exactly.
been.
We
That's
have
what
been
we've been running on both
We've already been
tracks.
doing that.
Exactly. I mean,
So-
that was one thing that was very clear is that even if we decide to do this, we still need to pursue this other route just in case. We can't abandon that.
Right.
I just want to say that I talked to Tish James today. She wants to help. How can she help?
Money?
No, I sort of said
money.
money
That's
and
what we need.
access and stuff like that. But then she also talked to Eric Adams, borough president. He wants to help, and also Lori Campo wants to help. So we just need to say how,
Yeah.
and they'll be here.
Yeah. I mean, our city council people and the Brooklyn Borough President's Office has soft money.
Yeah, right.
And I worked with a nonprofit a few years ago. And we got, say it again?
We're not a nonprofit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we're not.
We
big as a
can't
profit.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Okay.
Anyway, but we will work with them in some way.
We'll
Yes,
figure
we don't,
that
okay,
out.
so the money thing is a different, you know, we shouldn't dwell on the money thing because I think, yes, go ahead.
I just have two questions. One about the campaign. Is there a way that like you can, or I just have some like suggestions for edits, like Green Hill Food Co-op?
Yeah, sure.
Like,
It's, you know, this
okay,
is just a draft.
Okay.
It's just literally, I couldn't sleep and I woke up at 4 a.m. and I wrote this
Because also
thing.
like what we're doing for the neighborhood, like I think there are
Yeah.
ways to- okay.
This is really just a mock-up
Are you
of, this is the
volunteering to
kind
help?
of thing it will look like.
Yeah, she's volunteering to help here.
Excellent, fantastic.
And then
Talk to us after
also,
the meeting.
yeah, things like, I mean, I feel like a lot of people know about the co-op from, say, like the Broad City episode. Like,
Right.
can they do a promo?
Yeah.
Like, I think there's
Ooh.
ways to
So
That would be great.
get things.
All of that stuff would be
But
great.
yeah, okay.
But
I
I-
really,
okay.
I really want to harness all of this great energy. the big focus we're talking on is if this is an option that's viable that we want to pursue, versus closing completely. So the
Right.
little itty bitty the
Details,
details
yeah.
we can definitely work out.
Okay, I have another question. Just
Okay.
Who is the lease? Like, who owns the space? Like, who would we be renting from, and how long is the lease?
So the lease is 10 years, and the landlord is 70 years old, and he's owned the space for, I think they said 40 years today, and he wants to hold on to it until he dies.
So we should definitely send him lots of kind of homeopathic remedies.
He's very healthy, and like, and yeah, that was, yeah. So
Yeah.
like,
We're gonna
yeah.
Anyway,
take-
Cecile.
Hold on, we're gonna take 3 more comments and then we're gonna move on.
Did you get the list of the financial document that you request?
Did I get, yes, I mean,
Can you email it to
I
us?
did, I forwarded it to the board.
really?
Yeah, I
got
forwarded it to the board last week.
Oh, I missed that one.
Okay, I sent it, so you've got it. Yeah, other
Share
questions?
the construction costs, like how much of the money?
It really, really depends because it's labor. Like 75% of it is, how much is a fluorescent lighting fixture? Nothing. How much does it cost to get someone to wire it in?
So you're
It
banking on
depends.
volunteer labor.
We're banking on member labor and also Park Slope after, future time off program labor. Since they have a much larger membership, the likelihood that they will have certified and bonded electricians and plumbers in their membership is much higher than this, where we have much fewer members. And as people may know, people have a lot of trouble filling their shifts at Park Slope. A lot of trouble. So if we said you can have 20 hours of Park Slope work credit to put in all our electric, would be fine.
One more comment.
That would have to be negotiated.
Yeah, everything has to be
No, with
negotiated.
stock stuff, I mean.
Yes, of course. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think it's really exciting to have a positive proposal. It's great.
And I think the fundamental questions are just kind of about timeline and impact and kind of when we can move forward with something and when we have to bail out. So it sounds to me like having some sort of like critical path flow and having that be really transparent will be an easy way, absolutely, or a fruitful way to both harness the energy, but also on a timeline that works, because we're too late to the game. It's more a common question. So can you help with that or whatever? You know, on that. But I think that would be really valuable. Like when can we, if we agree to this lease, when can we, if we have to bail out, like what are the avenues there? Like kind of just thinking of options. I mean, we could move, if we want to, we could move in tomorrow.
I have to, I'm sorry, I have to say,
Yes. Yeah.
we do not have this lease.
We do not.
We do not have the space. We have not been accepted financially by the owner or the landlord or anything like that. We have to begin negotiations, and they have to accept us. And looking at our financials, they may not want us in this space. So that's not a done deal. I mean, we even have to get past that hurdle. Having said that, there may be other spaces if this one falls through, but it gets closer and closer where we do need to be out of here by May 1st.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we would ever be able to negotiate that further, or we're here and we're waiting for the cops to show up to, you know,
We're chaining ourselves.
to chain the doors.
I mean, one thing I will say as well is that when we met with, have you actually met the owner? Okay, so we met with the real estate guy who's a neighborhood, he lives in the neighborhood. And we were very clear from the very beginning, we are not a profit earning business. We do not have a big chunk of money. Money comes in and it goes out. So that they have to be prepared for a financial picture that looks kind of weird, but we pay our rent and we pay it on time. And that seemed to go over okay.
Yeah.
There is only, I mean, this is a beautiful space for very little money, and there's only one other business that's even halfway vying for it. It's a renter's market right now. So in terms of commercial real estate. So I think, I mean, things have changed a huge amount since our first go round. Where the market's going to go. All right, thank you everyone for listening.
Does anyone get accounting? Yeah, I need to know how many people
I
are
counted
here.
over 60, like 65.
All right.
Oh, well,
But more people have been coming in, so.
So next we're going to talk about.
Actually, Amanda, can we move some people from there to the back? Because I know people are kind of spilling out the doorway.
Move over this way, try to move in as much as you can. I'm so excited to see everyone
So I
here.
don't want the vote to go on like this, but this way it's so.
This
Too easy.
Someone can take my chair if they want. I'm happy to stand.
Everyone should sign.
Stand here, thanks.
Okay, so the next topic is not as fun. With that, we're talking about the recommendation to close the co-op completely, which would be either dissolving the cooperative or declaring bankruptcy. Also keep in mind through this portion is if we decided to do the funding campaign and weren't successful with it or weren't able to move into the new space, this would be sort of like the lines that we would start going to with the time frame with that. So nitty gritty of time frames aside, we're just looking big picture with that. Do we have a board presentation on this?
Yeah, I can sort of reiterate what we've, some of our thinking that we have arrived at in past meetings, and then turn it over to either of you if you have something to chime in. Like I mentioned before, we have, because sales have been down, we've been losing money every month for about the past 6 months. The sense that we need to close was just brought on by the termination of our lease and the knowledge that it would be very expensive to move. That it would take all of our remaining cash in the bank and then some in order to be able to move. That's sort of the gist of why a crowdfunding campaign would be necessary. In moving or trying to remain open in some other capacity, we would be basically saying to anyone who we owe money, sorry, we can't give you any of that back. So I think I think that was sort of the main factor that drove me, at least, to think, okay, let's talk about really what closing would look like, because it's the option that would give us, it's the option that seemed to be the most financially conservative, the least risky to the people who have loaned us money. I think the other things, the other questions that we have, sort of observing sales dip and observing shifts go unfilled and so on, is whether what we're doing right now in its current form is sustainable and is financially viable, even if we move, even if the next couple months are okay. The big trend hasn't been comforting in that regard. We've been folks on the membership committee and the board and the merchandising committee have been like trying to tackle these problems of like, how do we get people to come to the store to shop and to work their shifts for the past year at least.
More.
Or more.
For
ages.
Yeah.
And so it's, that like sort of begs the question, okay, how are we going to make it work if we move somewhere new? We have a really dirt cheap rent right now too. And so if we need to move to somewhere with more expensive rent, then we also need to do more sales. So that, the member labor piece, the loans, the sort of, like I said, the financially conservative idea is, okay, we just have to say it's not working. That was the sense that was sort of driving that board recommendation to close. I want to say just sort of semantics. We can close our doors. When I'm saying close, I mean something more like let's dissolve or declare bankruptcy. So let's cease to exist as an organization. So that we can just sort of close the books and people can sort of go on their own way and support other co-ops and so on and so forth. I said that in a very, very confusing and roundabout way, but I hope maybe Cecile or Matthew might have something to add to that, and then we can take clarifying questions.
I would and probably saying very similar things to Christopher as we were looking at the trends for the past 2 to 3 years. It was, how can we keep this effort afloat? It seems like a great idea ideologically, but from the logistics of keeping the store open and being sustainable, we were struggling through that for years. The first loan that we took, $10,000 loan from Park Slope, was we were going into what is typically a summer slump at any food place, at any co-op, and we were not going to be able to pay rent. We were not going to be able to pay our vendors. And we had to take out a $10,000 loan just to keep our doors open. And that was, I think, 3 years ago. And since that time, we've been just barely making it, and then to be hit with the lease termination. And we had always been hoping, like, we're going to, with effort and maybe tooling things a little bit, we can, bring this back. And then, and we have yet to be able to do that. So from the financial responsibilities that we have as directors, we were looking at what is responsible financially for people who believe in the co-op and as individuals have lent us anywhere from $1,000 to up to $10,000. We are going to have to say, thank you for the money. We could make it work. And that was difficult to have to do. That was where we were as a board saying the responsible thing is to close. I was also asking myself, unless you want to add anything more specific to that.
I'm waiting.
I was asking myself when there was individuals that were, bringing up the funding campaign, like the Indiegogo thing, and looking for spaces and finding some that might be able to work. I was asking myself, what would it take for me to endorse something like that? And I think it is a concern with having it be a sustainable effort, and that we may, what has seemed up to this point an immutable model, we need to look at who we are, the neighborhood that we're in, the cultural forces that are happening, and look at the model that we have, and maybe, or not maybe, we would have to create a new one to guarantee that if we put a big effort in to open up at a new place, that it will be sustained. And one thing is, when we have open shopping, that is when we are making sales money that could sustain. But we only have that once a month. Could we be a model where, as a member, you pay a certain price, you do your work, but anyone off the street can come in and they would just pay a higher price? It's a little bit of a different model. Park Slope has already been very specific.
No, they don't. They're worker only.
Bushwick?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said Park Slope. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah,
I
and
was saying,
Flatbush does.
if we were to be that model, we would be different from Park Slope, and we could not count on them for any more financial help.
Mm-hmm.
They're very clear about who they want to support. But if we have a model that's sustainable, maybe we don't have to resort to that.
It's also, the opening up to non-members is not necessarily a financial gain. The only other worker owner cooperative was in Montana that had the Park Slope model. They were open for 10 years or so, actually closed last October. And one of the things they did was, to get more sales, they opened up to non-members, and they immediately saw a 30% drop in sales because their members now felt less inclined to work and less inclined to shop. So it's a different kind of thing.
It's a complicated model.
Can I just sort of butt in for just a minute? I mean, Matthew's concerned that if we were to relocate and remain a business, we would also need to significantly shift what we're doing and sort of shift our strategy. Is something that I feel strongly that Christina Travers, who's also on our board, has also raised questions about. And I don't want to speak for you, Cecile, but it's been like that sense has been a part of our discussions about like the what if we did move.
What are some other ideas of big changes aside from the non-member shopping?
I could
increase the markup a little bit.
I can speak to that a little bit. I can only speak to my involvement as of late in the committee work and board meetings. But literally, like, the board meeting that we had right before we got the letter was like, it felt really good. We were looking at numbers. We had a really good open house. We were planning another one. The numbers were looking like a little bit better. And we had a very, I thought, successful presentation from the membership committee about ways to improve our membership numbers and like how can we support the members that we do want to have better in the neighborhood. So I think that, this is all hypothetical. This was all in the works. I can't speak to if it's going to work or not. Like, there were plans already in place before all of this happened to make some of these changes already. And I think that like having a more visible storefront and being able to support our community better could work.
Okay, so can I? Okay, go ahead. I mean, I can wait.
No, it's okay.
Directly
It's a finances question, so go ahead. I can wait.
So one of the things that I want to share, because of course moving and continuing the co-op is a far more exciting option than the one that we originally proposed, which is the solution of bankruptcy. But I want to share the fact that we have a very short period of time, and that once the store closes, if we do have to dissolve or to declare bankruptcy, then who's going to do it? Because all of a sudden nobody's going to be around anymore. And so I really don't want to wait too long before the decision is made one way or another, because it wouldn't be fair just for the board to have to do all the crappy stuff afterwards. I'm just concerned about that, because it's easier to get member labor to paint the floor or do this or do that. But, to go through all the hassle of the administration and make sure that everybody get paid and decide if we do bankruptcy or not. I hope some people are excited about it. So I just want everybody to keep that in mind. And we have to make a decision fast, and whether it's one solution or the other, we all member and we are all responsible for it. And so I hope everybody will fall through with that.
Sarah.
So I had a question about weekly revenue. When we were talking a few years ago, when our average weekly take was about 10 to 11,000, we had said in order to break even and even to pull money in the bank, we need weekly income to be 15,000.
Yeah.
So a year ago, we were at 16,000, which suggests to me then that we were not only making our required amount to pay all our bills and pay our staff and keep the lights on and pay the rent, but we were actually making a little bit above and beyond that. So,
payroll.
No, I'm saying and payroll, right? So
we didn't have payroll at that time.
A year ago?
No,
we were making 16,000 a week a year ago because I went through Revel.
Before.
No, what I'm saying is that a year ago, when we were talking about how much we need to make, the model was always 15,000 a week, and then that would be enough. And then members coming and going. So kind of, and Amanda crunched these numbers a little bit too. We would have to make probably an additional $2,000 a week in order to cover expenses were we to move. And we have 100 members sort of in holding pattern right now. So a lot of I guess my question is that $15,000 a week number does it still hold? Or do we have additional expenses? So even to do what we're doing now, we need more than 15, or is that number still good? Because that was always the number we were given.
We have no idea.
Okay, cool.
$15,000 number, we had a much smaller store coordinator labor.
Yeah, that's why we're
okay.
And the fees
And we're talking about a 60% increase in our rent.
Well, but Amanda, you've crunched the
I've crunched the
projected.
numbers. I've been asking for finance numbers for a while, and they're in a lot of different places, and it's been hard to wrap them up. Using some calculations, there's two calculations that I'll have. The first one is up here. If our current expenses are about $10,000 per month, with the increase in rent, we need $1,500 to $2,000 more. So how it works is this is not including inventory going up and down. To sell $60,000 worth of stuff, we have to buy $48,000 worth of product, which makes our net cost $12,000, of which from there we can subtract all of our expenses, payroll, rents, insurance, things like that. I ran some other, and then the other thing to keep in mind, for every $1,000 increase in expenses per month, we need $5,000 more in sales. So it's a pretty substantial jump with the markup that we have. I ran some numbers with higher estimations of payroll and some of the latest numbers that I could get, which some were from 2015, some were from 2017, came up with about $17,000 in monthly expenses, including loan paybacks and different things like that. which would mean monthly sales in the new space that we would need about $85,000. 85,000, I can't do math in my head. Divided by 4 is about $21,000 per week in sales.
Assuming we stayed at the same markup.
Assuming we stayed at the same markup, changing the markup changes it slightly. That gets into nitty gritty. So with those numbers in mind, and my professional experience, if we double our membership, we'd be able to do it. And it's sort of like with all the enthusiasm of moving into a new space, it's sort of like first hurdle of meeting the funding goal. The second hurdle is meeting the labor goal that we need to actually move into the space. And then the third goal is going to be getting the membership numbers up. Chris.
So doubling the membership, yeah, I mean, sales right now are at about 1,100 a month or a week.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, doubling that to
11,000.
11,000, sorry.
Scared me for a moment.
I mean, the question in my mind is, how long would it take to double the membership? And from there, I would ask, can we raise enough money so that we can pay our loans, move debt-free, and cover our expenses for that amount of time until we could anticipate
But we're also
doubling that membership?
we're not saying pay off our loans completely if we have
Right,
the
good
viable
point.
space to
Right.
move into, the loans go back
Just
to
hang
their normal
Payments, yes.
Yeah, but I see that piece. I understand
I mean-
why his concern is okay, it's a risky business to move out because of the number that we know here. I mean, so it's based on wishful thinking, which nothing's wrong with it. And so I think to live here with no debt, I think as responsible, reliable board of director, we will feel more comfortable than to say, oh yeah, we still own money and we go there and we might even own more money.
I mean, yeah,
Got
I
it?
mean, because
That's
it's
the point,
gambling
I
on
think.
doubling
Yeah.
our membership and doubling or somehow through other means doubling our revenue. That's why I would say, let's take care of the loans.
Okay, so your hand and
Me?
yes.
Is there directors and officers insurance for the board?
No.
No.
There's not.
No.
We have an indemnification clause in the bylaws, but as governance chair, it's going to be we need to get directors and officers insurance as soon as possible.
When we spoke to the lawyer, he said basically we can be sued by anyone at any time.
Right.
And whether we had insurance or not, that wouldn't stop anyone from suing us.
Well, but then insurance would have typically paid it if they do.
Right. But we, look for pro bono lawyers and,
You're a lawyer?
the whole thing.
No, but I mean, I can see how you guys are nervous about this. I mean, you're
Thank you.
legally on the hook for
Yep.
the
Yes.
affairs of the cooperative. So I guess in that segues to like another comment. I think one of the things that's exciting about the proposal is that it seems like there's some new energy in terms of kind of leading the charge. And I just want to be clear that like, if anything is going to happen, it's from that energy, and like a crowdfunding way is a way to measure that energy and like kind of quantify it like in real terms.
Sure.
But it's going to take leadership to even make that happen. And so I just want to make sure that there's some like thinking around, okay, if we're going to try something, like who's responsible for it? What's the number that we have to reach by when? And then, if we do move into a new space, like, is the same board that's been dealing with like all this stuff for so long, and that's probably pretty fatigued about it. I imagine you guys are exhausted. Like, is that the same board that wants to be there for the future of the space, or do we need to think about a new board and new leadership, new energy?
We do have a board position open.
Anybody would like to share that responsibility?
Can I respond directly?
Yes.
Just as a quick direct response, just to echo some of that, and that's what's exciting about crowdfunding. It's like we can see the enthusiasm, and we certainly feel it too. I mean, we're like bogged down under all of this, and then it's like, great, Sarah's coming in and Lindsay is coming in, and everyone who's come together to like put together that proposal, that came together super quickly, whereas we've been like feeling right for a long time. The other point you mentioned, should there be new leadership, new board? I mean, yeah. I mean, we're
Hell
here.
yeah.
Like, we're here and we're like trying to like say, okay, what are the like hard questions, and what's the like the financially like what's the stuff that we have to deal with because we're in this position right now. But that doesn't mean that we have the energy or the like enthusiasm or the expertise to like do the other thing that we would need to do if we choose to move and stay open. So we're like here for the now, and I don't know how you two feel personally, but like, yeah, I think that's a real point.
I was feeling to resign, and then we got the notice. So.
You guys just do a ton of work,
Yeah.
and it's completely like people don't notice it, people don't appreciate it, but we know it's so much work, and to double the membership would be so much work, right? And for us to ask you guys to double down again on a proposal that somebody else made.
We're gonna
Do you want me to
move
keep
on.
step?
The one thing, just the board is not the one doing the work on
Right.
on everything.
That's true.
Thank you.
Christina and Taylor, anyone else have their hands up?
Okay, I'll be quick. I have something to say in response to the question that's come up. How long will it take to double the membership? I personally got really excited about the crowdfunding idea because I feel like it's the opportunity we've needed for a while. It's a PR opportunity, and I think if we use local businesses as a conveyor of that, there's such a strong network of local businesses in this neighborhood. I follow them all on Instagram. They all follow each other. They all love each other. No one follows us, and I talk to these business owners a lot. They don't even know about us. I really think a lot of that, I said this before, has come down to our location. I talk to people all the time who are like, we have a food co-op in this neighborhood. That sounds so cool. But then they kind of forget about it. And like, I currently work in sales. You need a lot of touch points to get people on board. Getting new members is like selling. So if we tell people about us, they see us on Instagram, then they walk by a new storefront, they're like, oh my God, I've heard about that place. I want to come in. Like where we are right now, that's just not happening. I genuinely, like, I love this neighborhood so much because the types of people who live here are people who would be food co-op members, and they just aren't finding us. So I feel like if we get people in the community involved and like post, like, did you know that our neighborhood has one of the only like fully working member co-ops in the whole country? I bet you didn't. They're in trouble. Also, if you like donate to the crowdfunding campaign, you could be a member and get cheap, sustainable food. I just think it could be an opportunity to get a lot of new members.
We had a meeting like this that I was at 6 or 9 months ago, and there were representatives from the Park Slope Co-op. And I remember there were major pushes to try and get them to adopt us, and that didn't come to fruition. But what they did say was they were a year away from opening up a branch in this neighborhood. And my question is, if we go through the hell of moving and doing all this and trying to grow our membership, what are our chances of competing with Park Slope, who has the capital to run at a loss for 6 months? Are we gonna get our our knees chopped up from under us? Is there any commitment from Park Slope that they will not open to be our competition, which is what they were talking about doing 6 or 9 months ago?
There is no commitment from Park Slope. They started their committee to look at opening a second location in Brooklyn about a year ago. The committee started a year and a half. At the time they gave themselves 2 years to come to a conclusion. We spoke with Rachel, which is the liaison at the Park Slope Co-op for the loan that we have with them, and she said that nothing would happen within 2 years. So that was 6 months ago. So that gives us a year and a half. But if they have an opportunity and they go for it, they will go for it. And they're, before anything, I mean, they're a great cooperation, but they're like a business, right?
Yeah, and if I can offer one other direct response to that. Park Slope is not interested in us. I didn't mean to stop there. But
Please.
they're not.
Wow, that's a statement.
Us going under could hurt them.
Yeah.
They don't want
Yeah.
that to happen.
Yes, right.
They're not necessarily interested. I mean, sure, if we had to wind down, they're like, okay, that's sad. We can make a way. They're not going to like come in and like give us lots of money, so they're not going to do that either. But if competing with us meant that hurt their relationships with their vendors and with their members, then they're not going. I don't think they're going to want to do that. That's based on my very recent conversations with them, with Rachel and with Joe.
Can I speak a little bit too, actually? Just that they're talking about Central Brooklyn, which is enormous. So it could mean Crown Heights. It could mean, it doesn't necessarily mean this chunk of Clinton Hill, Bed-Stuy. They're looking at there's also a co-op in Prospect Lefferts, and which is why we didn't look there. I think if you're talking about PR, the PR for them would be extremely bad if they were the big behemoth coming in and squashing the scrappy little startup in a majority Black neighborhood. Not to put too fine a point on it.
This kind of speaks to the Park Slope issue. Is over the past year, our membership and like any forward motion has been hindered because of this lease issue. And part of what Park Slope wants to see from us is that we're interested in growing and making our business better, and we haven't been able to do that. And so that like process improvements and more visuals that would make it easier and better for our members working have not been able to be developed, because that's time and energy that people are spending on moving or figuring out what to do about our membership. If we can get more members to work and have less store coordinator hours because we're more stable, then that's less of an expense. If we have all the paperwork to get a beer license, and I don't know if you've seen the beer license or the beer selection at Park Slope, it sucks, and they make a ton of money. So, we're like ready to roll with things like that, and those are huge sources of revenue that like we've just been incapable of tapping into because we're
Okay, so I just want to talk about the model for a second. I also think there's several meetings that have to happen besides this one. So to get too wrapped up in some of these discussions here might be better off being put off to another meeting that's focused on how do we, what do we change if we move question. So the model, in terms of the model, Park Slope is very proud of us. And I'm sorry if this sounds contrary to what other people have said. When we first opened, they sent people from all over the world to come visit us, from Japan and Paris and Montreal. They came to see that we could actually be a co-op, whereas they're like a 17,000 member co-op. We're this young, scrappy co-op, and they're very proud of the fact that they helped us do that. So there is one in Paris also called La Louvre, and it was and just to speak about the elected officials helping us. That's sponsored by the city of Paris, and they got €1 million to open. And the startup I'm in the Navy Yard, Eric Adams. Our startup is not a nonprofit. Eric Adams gave it $250,000.
Well,
so there is money there. You don't have to be a nonprofit to get money from the borough president. You have to prove that you're actually going to make, you're going to generate jobs and or interest in the neighborhood. You're going to support Brooklyn, basically.
Laura? There's two things I think. Yeah, thank you for the research of it. And, I do think with the new location we can have more members coming. But one of the my question is more like about the relationship with parks, though, in the sense of when we get an agreement that if we open in this place, there will be like a radius of non-action from them, or
like a non-aggression pact.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not that
rather
they
than relying on
don't
the
ask you to do
alcohol.
anything, but
Yeah.
if they are close to us.
We can ask. I've jotted that down. I'm our liaison with them.
They sent out a letter on our behalf when we opened to the people in a certain radius, to your point. And that letter went out to something like 10,000 or 6,000 Park Slope members to say, go shop at Green Hill.
But they also can't get credit for working here like they used to.
Yeah.
Well, because we were draining them of credit.
It's
We
been-
were draining them.
So the next portion, it is currently 8:23. We're gonna take about 10 more minutes or so to sort of, this is a question and answer period. If you have questions about one plan or the other, or if you need more information to change your mind one way or the other. Again, we're still not looking at little nitty gritty kind of things. It's still the big picture of close completely or move to the new space. So if you have questions, raise your hand. So, okay, so we'll do that. So, technically this is a meeting of the membership. I do believe we have quorum here. I haven't checked the membership status of all of y'all, so I'm assuming that most of you are actual members. So if we decide we can make a decision today, we can decide, yes, we're gonna do one thing, yes, we're gonna do another. If we don't come to a decision today, we can say, like, let's take it to an online vote. If we have the online vote, there'll be another meeting next Wednesday here to sort of accumulate that. But if we're really leaning one way or the other, we can vote now and.
Yeah.
Is there a cost to putting out this Indiegogo? And I mean, it sounds like we're going to keep going on the other possibility anyway. So if we vote to do the Indiegogo, we're giving it a try. And then I guess we get to keep the money anyway, so we could use it towards paying off those loans if we don't make it. So is there a downside to that? To trying it, if there are people willing to put in the effort? And maybe deciding on what our line would be for how much we really need to make in order for it to be worth it. And maybe it's not 20,000, maybe it's higher.
Well,
or
actually,
maybe it's different.
Yeah,
you
I can
know?
respond to that. Actually, if you look at where we are now, it's very explicit that if we don't make our goal, our primary priority is for the money to go to loans. So it says we need to build up our bank balance and protect the loans that our members have made. And even if we don't make our goal, that's where we're planning for much of the money from this campaign to go. So we're clear that this may not work, but whatever money we bring in is encumbered for loans.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, it's a win-win, right? We get enough money and we can move. We don't get enough money, but we actually save some of our debt.
Or we don't get the lead.
Or we don't get the lease.
Yeah, you
Also,
never-
not a done deal. Although at this point, we're the only, as far as the realtor is concerned, we're the only viable request right now.
Okay.
May I respond to that directly?
30 seconds.
I'm speaking on behalf of Christina Travers, who's director, who's not here. We were in a conversation with our lawyer today. This was brought up, and she was reticent about the money that is being publicly stated as saving. And although it's stated, parenthetically down in there that like it'll go towards this, that it's almost duplicitous to say this is going to save us and this is going to help us in the move. And then being like, well, we didn't raise enough, we're going to pay off our loans. She was very concerned about how
Even
that
if it's
would come
explicitly
across.
stated?
Even if it's
Indiegogo's
explicit.
are. They all are. I mean,
that's
you
why
assume
people
it'll
use
just go to
them.
something else.
Yes, she was her concern. That I'm
Yeah.
stating that
Right.
she can't further that, and it would be something that was in the campaign. I think that has to be more explicit than as it was in this
Sure,
draft.
absolutely.
And that's
I mean, this
something
is
that,
just a draft.
Yeah, and I think as the directors, we would have to feel comfortable with that.
Absolutely.
It might also be something that can go out, like, to people who paid, like, once they've paid, if, like, say we don't raise enough money or
Okay,
something.
we're gonna go back
Legally,
to
it can't.
staff.
Yeah,
So
it'll be-
if you want to talk, raise your hand. Try to keep it.
So I had a quick question about the original build out of this store, because I wasn't here when that happened. And how much of the actual work that got done, I know Flores did a bunch of it.
Yep.
But how much of it was done by anyone with licenses or permitted or any of that stuff at that time?
Should we close
how
our
by
hearing?
the pants? How by the pants did we go then?
It was, I mean, who was here working on it?
You had a contractor for this part, all the electrical, you had a contractor.
That was, what was her name?
Brian or something like that?
Oh, Brian, different than the contractor that you were speaking of.
Flores. No, Flores worked on stuff, but he had a contractor for this, but then all main actually done by members, I think.
Right, like the floors were all done by members.
Yeah.
Yes.
These floors were done by members.
Okay.
But I don't think that we had the same electrical necessities that we need to have done at the new space. If we're talking about specifically, like these were all here as this used to be a laundromat, so it wasn't. I don't think laying extra lighting, and same with the water. We weren't having to start with like hot water. I don't know the specifics. I'm just, what I know is through Kevin, who was one of the people who helped. He was with the relocation committee with us, and he was a big help in that. And so we would talk about, with every space we looked at, I was like, how is this compared to the space we're building?
I'm putting myself on stack. I actually agree with Christina. If we have a certain number that we have to hit in order to move into a new space, it should be an all or nothing. I think it should be an all or nothing campaign. So if we need $20,000 and we put it out there as that's what we need, it'll get people, as we get closer, people will be more likely to donate. But personally, I wouldn't give a lot of extra money to be like, oh, like we're only at 10,000. I'm only going to put in $50 because that $50 might go to one of the other members rather than like, oh, we need $5,000 more to get to that 20,000. And I know if we hit that, we're going to be moving. So I think there should be something in there like, if we hit this goal and we're unable to get the lease or something like that, then it would do that. But as far as like this is what we need in order to be able to do it, I think it should be all or nothing. Sarah, does anyone else have comments, questions?
I just want to talk a little bit about the comment about energy. So I'll just speak from my own experience. How long ago? Like 8 years ago, I was the director of a research institute at the CUNY Graduate Center. And so it was just a little bit after the financial crisis, and CUNY was totally broke. And our budget was cut in half. And we also lost, our office staff came from tax levy money, and we were told we wouldn't have that tax levy money anymore. So it really looked like we would have to fire all our staff. We were going to have to close, essentially, or be such a skeleton organization. And this is it was the Center, well, what was then called the Center for Lesbian and Gay Studies. It was the oldest research institute for queer studies in the country, no, in the world. So we had this come to Jesus moment. Sorry for the Jews and Muslims in the room, which I'm on. And we were just like, okay, we just have to do this because it's this or it's nothing. And the organization is still alive and it's thriving and it's offering a program a week. And it's just celebrated its 25th anniversary. So it was a little different, obviously, because we were housed in an academic institution, so we didn't have to pay our rent and we didn't have to pay to keep the lights on, right? But we had zero budget, zero. So I think even though I do agree that often wishful thinking can lead us down the wrong road and get us into trouble, my sense is that there could be energy in this room and in this co-op to do the work we need to do and raise the money we need to do to raise. And I think in relation to what Christina was saying, there is an amazing network of local businesses, and some of us have lived in the neighborhood for decades, and we know all those people. We know the people who own Greenlight Books. You know, we know the people who own the liquor stores. We know the people who own the restaurants.
Right.
And so if we just said, please run a fundraiser for us, so I think in some ways, I know this from experience, lack of money leads to lack of imagination.
Right.
Because poverty is exhausting. And so when you're poor, all you can think about, or broke, we're not poor, when you're broke, all you can think about is how you're going to pay the next bill. What we need to a certain extent, and I say this with huge respect for our board members who have had to deal with the nitty-gritty of us being broke, for whom it is exhausting. But I think to a certain extent, there is a sense that you need resources to have imagination, but you also need imagination to gain resources. And either we think this is going to happen and we try and make it happen, or we don't. And I think all the arguments in one, like I can talk till I'm blue in the face and say, do it, do it, do it. If people don't think it's viable, you're not going to vote for it. You know, members of the board could say, we need to declare bankruptcy, we need to close, and they can keep saying it. And if people don't believe it, then they're not going to vote for it. So either you know, to a certain extent, either we believe we can do this with all the information we have, or we believe we can't do this with all the information we have.
Okay, so Matthew, Julia, Taylor.
So I'm first.
Yeah.
One of my major concerns as a director was being responsible with the money that had been loaned to us by individual members. After looking at all the assets that we have, where we are financially, I was steeling myself to have to tell them that we appreciated your faith and your generosity, and that we can't pay your loan back. If we were to do a fundraising campaign, we would at least be saying to them, we may be able to pay some of that back.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing to lose, because we wouldn't, if we were to close, we wouldn't be able to pay them back.
Yeah. And money is money.
So that is one of my concerns, that if we do take it to the next step in a new place with a new model and all these things and make it work, we would at least be giving them, and what they contributed, what they loaned us a while back, we would give that a second chance as well.
Mm-hmm.
So both of these options are going to take a tremendous amount of work. Like closing is going to suck, and it's going to take a tremendous amount of work. And the other option is very exciting, but it's going to take even more work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we all have to be super aware that if we make that vote, it is a recommitment to your membership.
Yeah.
Here.
And that it's going to probably take more than your shift hours to make this work.
No, we can all do it, which is 2.5 hours. I can almost guarantee that. You know.
Yeah.
If we choose to go down this road,
yeah,
really all have to do it.
Yeah.
I do have to say that if we decide to move, if we get the space or move over this area, that there is a whole community, because we are hidden here, that you're opening this co-op to a Black and Latino and people of color community, in which we have to realize, like right now this is an all-white co-op, and I think people come into the space and see, and it's, you know, that just happens to be the people that were kind of targeted in the area who can maybe afford it, you know, so on and so forth. But that we have to be very intentional, because like those are your members.
Yeah.
Like people in Crown Heights and Bed-Stuy, and I'm also part of Central Brooklyn Food Co-op, and so I very much want to see that come to the physical space come to fruition. Like you have to make a very intentional effort for it to, those people over in Crown Heights in the community, to be a part of this co-op. Otherwise, I don't see the membership increasing, because it's just another white business like rolling on up in and like owning the space. Given that's not like, obviously that's no one's intention, but that's how people are going to perceive it. And so I think that that's just another facet. And don't get me wrong, like I'm all for trying to make this work. I will do, like, I have done what I can so far, but it's like that is something we really have to understand. Like, is a big thing you have to work on. And I mean, I just want everyone to know, like, that's not a minor
detail the process in general. So just putting that out there, like everyone in this community are your members, and we cannot exclude them, and they are mostly, a lot of them are Black, and all of them are Latino, you know, and it's like, well, I don't know. So anyway, that's just.
So okay, so the couple of things. So I don't know if we have to vote. I don't think that we have to vote either the dissolution / court bankruptcy or the moving. I don't see that the vote was not about that tonight. The vote was about like, are we dissolving or not, basically, right?
Yes and no.
The proposal's on the floor. I mean, it's a real proposal.
No, I know it's a
Yeah. No, what I'm
proposal. I
saying
got
is
it.
just what I'm saying is just in terms of procedure.
Yeah.
If there's a proposal on the floor, we can vote on it.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be either.
Right.
I'm not. I'm saying
We don't have to do it now, but we could.
No, I'm not saying not to vote. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I'm saying is I don't think we have to vote either this one or that one.
Vote for both.
Can I?
You know,
Can I
I'm
try
gonna
to?
get into
I
that
don't
in
think
a
the
few
vote
minutes.
should be the choice about. Well,
What
we're
are
not
other
understanding
options
each
then?
other.
Okay.
Sorry,
So,
I don't have crosstalk. Sorry.
procedurally,
No.
Lizzie was going to talk, and then I was going to talk.
And
Okay, sorry.
And then anyway, that's just gonna. So great, but then would you have any, not for now, a suggestion about how to do that?
Yes.
Because this co-op originally had the intention of doing that, and it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have to be very,
We were unsuccessful.
yeah.
Well, I am not God, and I have not all the answers. But I
No.
do have ideas, and I'm sure.
Okay.
I do
I
know.
mean, we can talk about that.
There are other people that have ideas, and I think that regardless, if we're gonna move there, that has to be something that
Yeah,
we're
in
very
the mix.
intentional about. Like
Yes.
if that's what we're doing, if we're moving there, or even closer into the space, and if that's what everyone votes on, then like that has to be something that is addressed. Like, sorry, it's just I don't think it would work if it's not.
I want to say we were intentional.
Oh no,
So
I don't.
we tried really
necessarily think
hard.
people
We just
weren't.
made mistakes and we didn't do some things right, but we really were intentional.
Right. And that is one thing to stop the thing. Moving into a new space, we have a lot of time to sort of redo some of the things we've done
Yeah.
in the past that were successful and look at the things that weren't successful.
Exactly.
Lindsay?
And I also think through the Indiegogo campaign, and obviously many action items will follow, but it can be a recommitment to the ideals of the co-op. And like that seen the past year, like the co-op should not be a collective of flaky individuals. Like it needs to be actual.
Speak for yourself.
All of them here tonight means that you're not a flake, but like it's been a real struggle to actually get members to work and to be involved and to work with membership and all those things. So in that sense, it can recommit us to those issues. And there's also been things like we've made this over the past year, we've made the store more sustainable.
Yeah.
We've eliminated plastic produce bags. We've recommitted to composting. Like it takes just somebody with the drive to make it happen, and we can do that. The other thing is that the space on Fulton is not the only space that we saw in our budget, and it's not the only viable space. So if we raise all this money, there's other spaces out there. And then the last thing is if we can, raise money for funding, which has to be like $20,000 to $30,000, and we're successful in doing that, like who's to say that we also couldn't fundraise to absolve ourselves of the debts that we owe to our members, and who cares if we have more debt to Park Slope, like we can fly that up, we can get rid of. It's obviously very burdensome to have debts to our members, and we can figure out a way to get rid of that also. But we just haven't ever sat down and talked about it.
So as stated before, it's 8:40. There are two proposals on the floor, which we've been talking about the whole time. We're not going to do an official vote right now. I just want to get sort of a temperature read on where people are. So if you are interested in the Indiegogo crowdfunding moving to new space, raise your hand. I would say that is pretty overwhelming. So getting into the nitty gritty of the thing. I'm gonna write this on the board just because I can't with us. The crowdfunding campaign would run for 30 to 40
Anywhere
days.
between 45 to 60 days,
Okay,
and we need to
let's
figure
go.
that out. And I have to say, as you can tell from the draft proposal, I have never done this before. It was just reading a lot of them. We also have someone who will volunteer her labor to do a really nice design. And, you know, we have the brand book, so she can just use the brand book stuff that we have to make the page look really beautiful. So, yeah, I mean, I think we would probably have to get it running within a week. But all the text is there with edits, obviously, and we just have to upload a lot of images of the things we're going to give away.
And I mean, sometimes videos.
Yeah, I just did not have the capacity for that at all.
No, I'm not
Yeah.
saying, but like that's something to.
Yeah, so, but it would have to happen fairly fast, but it's not that much.
Well, if we put it at 45 days, that puts mid-April at the end of the campaign, which means we're getting the money right at May 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So this would mean the I'm trying to think of the time frame of making sure we are out of here by May 1st, assuming we don't have any wiggle room with making that assumption. And then either getting the stuff into storage to move into a new space or having that new space available on May 1st.
It also doesn't preclude other fundraising efforts over the course of March and April.
Okay.
So with those, we imagine that those would also keep going.
So maybe the 100 trial members, of which I am one, would pay their dues.
Oh, good idea.
I also just was curious, like there was something thrown out there, like every Park Slope member paid $2. What about if all of our members paid $5? Like, would that get us maybe a down payment or something? Like our members who are committed,
No, you
we all
won't.
just said we want to do it. Let's
No, we don't have enough members.
No.
There's a number, $20. Some amount that we could commit together.
Could we as members donate not through the Indiegogo so that there was a pile of money that we got before May 1st, like have a separate fundraising for that?
Yeah.
So I'm not clear about something. Can I ask?
Sure.
Okay, so are we including in the Indiegogo campaign, Indiegogo, because there is like people that say it's either yes or nothing, or are we going with if we don't make the move, then the money will be put towards
Yes.
paying out the loan?
Yes.
Because if that's the option, then I'm more.
Yeah, I think we have to be
More
absolutely
supportive
transparent
of it,
about it.
in a
Yeah,
way.
no, and I think particularly since the board is on the hook for this,
Yeah.
I think we have to be really transparent. And I think this is also how Indiegogo campaigns go, right? Even
Yeah.
the flexible,
Yeah, Angelica Kitchen did it.
yeah, that we just say, look, our goal, this is help save the Green Hill Co-op. Not you're going to save the Green Hill Co-op, but try and help do it. If we don't make enough money, our primary obligation is to our creditors because we don't want to go bankrupt. You know, we don't want to have to declare bankruptcy if we have to close.
And can we say, and that include like some very generous member that loan their money?
Yeah, absolutely. We can say whatever we want.
Okay.
It's our campaign.
Okay.
Oh, that's honest.
Yeah.
Yes. Also, like if we did raise some money among our members to put down a payment, we would just need 22 people to reinvest in the co-op, which like I've been a member for 2 years, and so I would, I feel like I've made I've made my money off of, or saved money off of being a member of the co-op at this point. So I would
I missed
gladly,
the beginning of what you said.
if 23 people reinvested in the co-op, like gave another $175, we would have 1 month's rent to put down at the new space.
Can I ask a related money question? Just I know that when there was sort of the crisis of loans, have we actually gone to members to whom we owe money and said, would you be willing to forgive the loan?
Right, I talked to one today and she said, please forgive it.
Because I loaned money and I just forgave the loan. I was like, keep it.
As a blanket, we have not gone to.
Let's try.
Yeah.
Let's
I'm
try.
owed money and I would think about that.
Or could you forgive part of the loan?
You're more likely to forgive
Sorry.
it if your profits it's gonna exist.
Exactly.
Yes.
Remember since the Buying Club.
Yeah.
Make one comment that we talk a lot about money here, but what's exciting to me is all of the time and relationships that people have put and all the cooperation that people have put into building this social enterprise that has really enriched so many people's lives. So I think it's really important that even though we're raising money, that we don't focus on like talking about how we're going to pay back loans, but we talk about how we're going to save a community, and that the language about how we present this is really important. So I have to go, but I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah.
Were you able to put your name on the there's a clipboard going around?
Is it worth making like a separate just sign up list for people who want to like help with it?
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
We can actually just put that up on.
Or we just, we're doing a real vote?
Yeah.
Do a real vote.
Um,
I do need someone to physically count the number of people here. If you are not a member, or you're not an active member, just promise me you will sign up for a shift and become active.
Amanda, maybe we can count off.
Yeah, let's do that.
Rather, because it's difficult to count heads, but if everyone counts off and everyone said a number, then we'll get the total.
Okay. Let's start from over here.
1,
2,
3, 4, 5,
6,
7,
8, 9,
10,
11,
12,
13, 14,
15,
16, 17,
18,
19,
20, 21,
22,
23,
24, 26,
27.
28,
29,
31,
32,
33,
34,
36,
37, here,
38, 39,
40.
41.
42.
43.
44.
53.
53,
Okay.
Okay.
50.
50.
Did you say it?
No, did you say
There's
55?
All right.
Biggest meeting in
I
ages.
know. Crisis brings people
I'm
out.
going to make the assumption we have less than 550 members.
Yeah.
We do.
Somewhere. So we're then that. So as an
For
official meeting of the members, we can have a vote. It sounds like we are voting to pursue the crowdfunding campaign and moving to space. First, basically, if we get a general vote of yes, we want to move, and then we can sort of work out the details of it. I haven't made a formal proposal in a while. Is there anything that needs to be included in the proposal other than that? This is what we're doing.
What if, do we need to include in the proposal well, I'll just state, I'm concerned that the target is not high enough, and I'm willing to be swayed on that and to have a discussion around that. So I wonder if the proposal could have some flexibility as to that so that we can set that, so that we can continue the discussion of where to set that after we vote on the proposal. And the second thing is, what if we don't reach that? Can the proposal include a contingency for dissolution at that point?
I think that's we already talked about
Sarah?
I think all we need to decide is, do we want to pursue moving, ideally to the space on Fulton? Do we want to pursue an Indiegogo campaign to raise funds? And will the people who are working on that campaign, will they take into account all of the suggestions and caveats that have been raised at this meeting? Because that, I think, I mean, I thought 20,000, well, that's a lot of money, but, you know, but I think that kind of stuff, we don't need to decide tonight. We just need to hammer out in the next week. Does that make sense? Because I think too much specificity, then it's like we're going to dicker over details.
Totally.
So if we just say these two big things we decide we're going to do, and then the group will trust those people who are working on it to be transparent, to give access to the document to whoever who wants it, and to respond to comments and requests.
And so the reason why I bring up the contingency idea is because we have a quorum of the membership here right now, and only the membership can decide to dissolve.
Mm-hmm.
So
And it needs to be a 2/3 vote.
So
of the quorum.
Of the
quorum,
yeah. So a 2/3 vote of the people in attendance tonight would need to approve that essentially. If so, my worry if we weren't if we were to not vote on that tonight is that we get
That
into
makes
this
sense.
like procedural limbo where like, okay, then like can the board act if we don't raise enough money? Do we need to call another member meeting if we just don't raise enough money?
Yes.
Could we just, take care of that vote now?
Yes.
Even though
Oh, I see what you were saying, Cecilia.
Yes,
I
that's what I
understand
was
now.
trying to
I'm
say.
sorry. Now I
Can
understand.
we take care
I'm
of that
sorry.
vote now?
Thank you.
Even though the intention could be let's pursue fundraising and relocation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because just to get everybody here, like that much people tonight, they have no idea how much work it takes.
Yeah.
And so if we have to do it all over again to get that quorum and so that we can, if it's necessary, have the power legally to do it, then that's what I would like to clarify tonight. And just it will make our life so much easier.
So maybe vote to empower the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should not vote to empower the board, but
No.
rather vote to dissolve in
case.
case we don't meet the goal that is to be determined.
So the proposal would be that the membership wants to move to a new space, understands that we need an outside funding campaign in order to do so. We can't do it through our normal things. And also recognizes that if we don't reach whatever number that we need to move, in that case, the co-op would be dissolving.
Yes.
Okay.
So by adding that to the same proposal, the whole thing needs 2/3 of those.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So
do we have to say what that number? Like this is it's to do yes or no, but what's the no? Aside from not It's just
dissolving right now.
Okay.
and if we voted to dissolve right now, it's not like we close the doors and walk out. We would have a winding down period.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a whole procedure.
I'm gonna erase this just so I can write everything down so we know exactly what we are voting on. So membership is voting to move. Voting to move with an outside funding campaign. If the campaign
So in the event that we do not raise enough funds.
in the events, the funding campaign.
Or if we cannot get to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. However you want to simplify that.
Enough funds or
We don't secure a space.
this is not secured. The membership votes to dissolve.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Do we need to clarify at what point, like what is enough?
We don't.
Enough time?
The amount.
Or the date.
Yeah.
I
The
mean the
date
amount.
proposed. Oh, and the date.
We need and
I think that stuff we can hammer out. I mean,
Okay.
it's
No, that's
4
fine.
minutes to 9.
Yeah.
For the record, there is a membership meeting called for next week. It was designed just so that we could like do online voting, but we can use that time that we've already called to start to hash up.
But once we have all of y'all come back next week, we'll be able to make.
Bring a chair.
So I would agree this needs to be slightly more specific, or does not raise sufficient funds to move.
I think since we're not following Robert's Rules of Order and we are a cooperative organization and we've all heard what everyone else has to say, that we understand that this is a guideline and that then we'll flesh it out in a week. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's right. I think it'll probably take some number crunching to figure out exactly what that magic number is that we need.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to decide it.
Yeah, right.
And what is enough?
Right.
Yeah.
And like what the board feels comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
It could just say in the event the board deems, or in the event the membership deems.
$500,000.
$1 million.
We are taking a long vacation.
I'm going to check enough to sufficient. Because that puts a better number on it. If we come up, we have X number of dollars to move, and we've made X minus whatever with that. Does anyone want to change the wording, question the wording?
I just have a question. Sure. So does this stipulate that we'll, like an issue over the past year is like coming up with a business plan that, re-outlines the co-op, or like are we going to move and maintain the status quo? Because that's not working.
That would be a separate proposal and discussion, and that would be something.
Marker makes me cough.
Do you want something to drink?
Yes.
There's just a little bit left.
No, that's not.
Thank
that's not the current. That would be an ideal situation if we make bukus of money, then maybe, but that's not a requirement.
Right. We're losing our quorum, so we should probably vote.
Yeah. Quickly, any more questions? Okay, so I, as a member of the co-op, move that we are voting to move locations with an outside funding campaign. In the event that the funding campaign does not raise sufficient funds or a lease is not secured, the membership votes to dissolve.
Second.
All in favor? Anyone not in favor? Passes unanimous.
My Lord. All right.
Can I make an announcement?
Your announcement, my announcement.
Someone will stay the cashier.
If you are like super energized about participating in anything connected to crowdfunding or relocating, etc., anything that we've talked about tonight, except for, well, and including the like depressing stuff that we have to sort of keep working on.
Yeah.
I'm going to put up a form on this computer or a spreadsheet or something. You can do that. I'll also send that as a link at some point
To the membership.
Yeah.
Great. Hey, that was really quick.
Okay. So there's still a membership meeting next Wednesday. It will still happen because we have to call those in advance. We can't cancel them because they're membership meetings. So we'll be here at 7 on whatever day next Wednesday is. 7th. If you're interested in any aspect of this crowdfunding, moving forward, business plan, anything, please come and we'll have a better sense of what the agenda is going to be for that meeting. If you're interested in a board position, come talk to the board. There's an open seat we can vote in. And if you're interested in crowdfunding, are you going to be the point person?
I am, although my mother is in town and I have to have dinner with her on the 7th. But I will sort some stuff out and other people will be able to speak eloquently about it.
And thank you, Sarah, so much.
Oh,
thank
thank Lindsay. Lindsay, you did amazing work too. right.
Were people watching
Oh,
on the
yeah.
video?